In the final Passover of Jesus' life, we find in scripture where Judas went to the chief priests, that is, the leaders of the people, and he asked them what sum of money would he give them to betray Jesus over to them. And the Jewish leaders agreed for 30 pieces of silver to give Judas that amount of money in order that he would betray Jesus. Question is, why did the leaders choose to give him 30 pieces of silver for the betrayal of Jesus? Now, to answer that, we have to turn to the book of Zechariah. So that will be two things I'm going to get you to understand. There will be prophetic reasons given in order, when I say prophetic reasons, that means that it becomes necessary to fulfill scripture so that Judas would be given 30 pieces of silver to betray Jesus. That is, in order to fulfill prophecy. It becomes necessary. So that's reason number one. And for that particular answer, we turn to Zechariah chapter 11. Now, to quickly give you some background on Zechariah and chapter 11 in particular, we know that Zechariah was a prophet to the post-exilic Jews, that is, the Jews who came from Babylon. And in his prophetic office, God not only commanded him to prophesy, but in that office, he was also to perform the duties of a shepherd to the nation. Notice, a shepherd to the nation. Now, at the same time as we understand the prophecies of Zechariah, what we have to understand is these are messianic in nature. That is, as Zechariah, when we look at Zechariah, it speaks to what the Messiah would do when he comes, things that would relate to the Messiah himself. Okay, so you need to understand it is messianic in its nature. So now let's go and look at Zechariah chapter 11. We're going to just focus on verses 12 and 13 to begin to lay the foundation. That is, why was it 30 pieces of silver? That it might fulfill prophecy. We're going to give an answer to that portion. 12. I said to them, if it is good in your sight, give me my wages, but if not, never mind. So Zechariah now goes to the leaders of the people, and he says, as far as my ministry is concerned to you, my prophetic ministry, what is its value to you? You decide what my wages are. And if you don't want to give me anything, don't worry about it. Don't give me anything. Continuing. So they weighed out 30 shekels of silver as my wages. So the leaders determined that Zechariah's ministry was worth to them 30 pieces of silver. And remember, keep in mind, as we're dealing with this, all of this is messianic. It speaks to the Messiah. 13. Then the Lord said to me, throw it to the potter, that magnificent price at which I was valued by them. So I took the 30 shekels of silver and I threw them to the potter in the house of the Lord. Notice, when the leaders agreed that Zechariah's ministry was worth 30 pieces of silver, notice how God responded. He told him, number one, throw it to the potter. But now here's the thing that we want to concentrate on. Notice what God said. Even though it was Zechariah who was being valued, his ministry being valued at 30 shekels of silver, notice what God said. The Lord said to me, notice, that magnificent price at which I was valued by them. So notice God is saying not so much as Zechariah or his prophetic ministry is being valued by the Jewish leaders, but God said that he himself was valued at the price of 30 pieces of silver. And so that's how we see and understand that it is strongly messianic in nature, that the Messiah, when he would come, he would be valued at 30 pieces of silver by the Jewish leaders. Now, that's just one side of the case, but there is another side of the case. So the question now becomes, is there a relevance to the 30 pieces of silver? Answer, Yes, it is. For this, I'm going to slow it down. I'm going to get too excited. We have to turn to Exodus chapter 21, and we're going to only look at verse number 32. And what we're dealing with is there any relevance to the 30 pieces of silver? Is that of any special significance? Exodus 21 and 32. If the ox gores a male or female slave, the owner shall give his or her master 30 shekels of silver, and the ox shall be stoned. Okay, so according to the law, here's what it is saying. If it say, for instance, if you have an ox and your ox kills the slave of another person, the value of that slave, what you are to give that other person for his dead slave, for a dead slave, is 30 pieces of silver. So according to the law, the value of a dead slave is 30 pieces of silver. All right. Now, continue with this idea of 30 pieces. And this is because of the law. This is where it comes from. In Jewish society, 30 became a number for contempt. So if, say for instance, if you entered into a business transaction with an individual and it was valued, that whatever that transaction may be, was valued around 30 shekels, 30 pieces of silver, you would not give him 30 pieces. You would either give him 29 pieces of silver or 31. So it would be settled by both parties, 29 or 31. They would never choose the number 30 because 30 became a number for contempt. So now let's take this all the way back to why the leaders gave Judas 30 pieces of silver for the life of Jesus. Number one, to fulfill scripture as we saw in Zechariah. And number two, as it pertained to Zechariah, the leaders of his day, giving him his wages for his ministry. And we also see, according to Exodus, the value of a dead slave, it was simply showing contempt. So when the Jewish leaders decided to give Judas 30 pieces of silver for the life of Jesus, they decided 30 as a way of saying we have absolute contempt for Jesus. It was a sense of rejection. All right, guys. Catch you next time.